Hello everyone, Jason Fella here. Time for our first lesson. Well, this is sort of a pre-lesson. I know we were supposed to get painting this lesson, but I lied. Unintentionally, but I lied. I wanted to talk about the difference between opacity and flow, because these are two tool settings that we're going to be using constantly through this entire series, including the next lesson. We're going to be using this very heavily. So the concept of opacity is simple. Opacity is the opposite of transparent. When something is transparent, like a window, we can see through it. When something's opaque, like a door, we cannot see through it. So if something has 10% opacity, then we can see through it quite a bit. If something has 90% opacity, then we can see through it just a little bit. Okay? So I'm going to be talking about two tool sliders. And I say sliders rather, they're not tools specifically, there's tool settings, and they're set up as sliders. Okay, so this is Photoshop that I'm working in, but your program may have these settings in a different place. I think most, if not all, digital painting programs will have these two tool settings. They have it in the two or three others that I've looked at anyway. So in the top left-hand corner, we see opacity and flow right here. And as you can see, these are sliders, so we can move this down to whatever we want. We can move it down to 5%, 29%, whatever, okay? So I'm going to talk about opacity first. So I'm going to move my tool setting down to 10%. Now, here's what opacity does when it's applied to the tool. And I should mention that these two tool settings can be applied to any of the drawing and painting tools. So the brush, the pencil, even the eraser, okay? So 10% opacity, and I start painting. As you can see, if we're working in monochrome, and I'm getting 10% of black essentially right now, okay? And it doesn't matter how many times I go over a particular area, I'm still only going to get that 10%. That's it. Until I lift my stylus off the tablet and then put it back down. Now, over the areas that I've already painted on, I'm going to get 10% more pigment laid down. See? And if I lift my stylus up again and put it back down, I'm going to get 10% more. Okay. That's opacity, and it's fairly useful. I mean, like I said, that's what I started using when I first started, and I used it, I would say, fairly successfully for, I think, a year or two. And then one day I was like, you know what? I just need to look up what this flow setting is. I got to find out what that is, because I kind of have a feeling that it's going to be important. And boy, was it ever. This completely changed how I did my paintings. So the best way I'm going to turn my flow setting down to 5%. The best way to think of the flow setting is this. It's like you're using a pencil or maybe pastels or chalk. Okay? And at first it's going to look just like the opacity thing. I'm going to start painting. Oops, sorry, I got to turn my opacity all the way back up. Okay, so opacity is at full, flow is down to 5%. Now at first, when I start painting, this just looks like the opacity thing. But now watch what happens when I go over an area that I've already gone over. See, it gets darker. If I go over it more times, it gets darker. So if you want something that's completely black, you just go over it a bunch of times. Okay, that's it. So as you can see, that's a much more organic, realistic, natural way of our tools responding, because that's more like it would be in real life. And the reason that this setting is so critical to the way that I paint, and if you paint realistic, I think you'll agree with me, is because it allows us to have extreme control over how we build up our values, our textures, and our colors. So this is a setting that I want you to just play with. We're going to start playing with it in the next setting, where I'm going to show you how to paint rocks. And this is a perfect way to illustrate how this tool setting really works. So I'll see you in the next lesson, and I promise we will get to painting. See you there.